Last 24 hours for the diplomacy of India has been quite a feat. India has been able to declare the Delhi Declaration that was reached upon by all consensus. Then there was this biofuel agreement also that was reached upon by several countries, including India, and the regional connectivity project that would connect India to Gulf and from there onwards to the European countries. So this is three policy decisions that India has been able to achieve in the last 24 hours. Ever since the start of India's presidency, there was a lot of speculation whether Indian diplomacy will be able to bring the warring side or divided side onto the negotiation table, and will there be a consensus. But now we know that there has been certain elements that are very interesting as to how this consensus was reached upon. Sources are telling us that 47 segments of consensus were reached. Almost 100% of consensus was reached. That was kind of historic for G20 presidency, and India decided to move ahead with certain smaller elements, and then those issues, those are controversial issues, they were postponed for the later part of the negotiations. Negotiators used the segmented consensus in a positive way. No differences, nothing that is against anybody. Every country had an opinion on the issues of its respective interest. Also, when the team of negotiators sat, they discussed around convergent consensus rather than a divisive consensus. So the issues which different countries have different opinion, but the world needs them resolved right now, like the climate change. Countries like China, countries from oil-producing countries like Gulf, Brazil, or the global south, they may have different perception on the issue of climate change, because for some countries it is an existential crisis. For some it is an economic concession that they will have to make, and their entire economy will be disrupted, which is dependent on oil and fossil fuel. So how, while acknowledging the fact that climate change is an issue, the carbon emission is an issue, global warming is an issue, and the world needs to act upon together on such issues, those divisive consensus or convergent differences were worked upon. Also, the negotiators tried to have every country was included in all the negotiations. Every country, including African Union, had a say on all the aspect that was discussed threadbare in the G20 negotiations in the last 1 year. Also, the summary said that it was Modi ki guarantee and Modi ka magic that worked. We know that Prime Minister Modi had assured Senegalese president, who was African Union representative at Bali G20, that next year, when India will be the president and Delhi will be the host, India will ensure that African Union get a say and most likely get an inclusion into this elite club. So this is what Modi's guarantee was all about, and the discussion that worked around several differences on the issue of Russia-Ukraine conflict, debt trap, fossil fuel, phasing out, and financial inclusion around the world. These were also agreed upon in a graded manner. Also, there has been incidences where no country expressed displeasure, and this is big thing that the sources are telling us, that non-presence of Ukraine did not come from any country, in a way that any country was not displeased by India not inviting Ukraine. We know that in the last several weeks there has been much buzz around whether Ukraine should be invited. There has been regular pressure from the Western countries. Canadian Prime Minister had in fact expressed his disappointment that the Ukraine is not part of G20 in Delhi. And Rishi Sunak, the UK Prime Minister, had also, before he started his journey from London, he has said that he will raise the voice of Ukraine. So sources are telling us, while certain countries did discuss the issue regarding Ukraine, its economic aftermath, its geopolitical aftermath, there was no displeasure that was expressed by any country that said that it was they are not happy why Ukraine is not here. So India's consistent stand on not making G20 a global geopolitical platform, that remained very much intact. India ensured that the G20's main agenda remains around economic policies, policies that impacts our everyday life, like fuel shortages, food shortages, and also regarding climate change, cybersecurity, social inclusion, smaller countries, coming together for their prospective growth, how to include third world countries in the mainstream of development in the world. That was some of the agenda that India pursued, and we have seen that India also connectivity corridor was something that has some of the experts have been saying that this is whether it will be just an counter of BRI project that has helped several smaller countries from the Chinese investment develop their infrastructural projects. And ultimately they have been not able to repay those loans, and their sovereignty is increasingly in danger because China is using its strategic clout to influence their policy, because they are in no position to pay the Chinese country back. So clearly the sources are saying that this could be a perception. People can perceive it other way. But what the leaders agreed upon, US, UAE, Saudi, European countries, European Union, France, Italy, German Chancellor, that there should be a collaborative effort in ensuring the connectivity of entire intercontinent from Asia to Europe via Gulf, and this is what they have been able to achieve in this policy decision document that was released yesterday. And India's presidency was clearly one of the path breaking in terms of having so many policy decisions coming together under India's presidency, and of course the Delhi declaration was cream on the top of it.
एक खुशखबरी मिली है, हमारी टीम्स के हार्डवर्क से और आप सभी के सहयोग से नई दिल्ली G20 लीडर्स समिट डिक्लेरेशन पर सहमति बनी है। मैं इस डिक्लेरेशन को एडॉप्ट करने की घोषणा करता हूं।
The summit has adopted the G20 New Delhi Leaders Declaration, consulted to express. Obviously, there are differing viewpoints and interests at play in regard to the various issues under discussion. However, we have been able to find common ground on all of them accordingly, with 3 sessions devoted. With regard to the to the comparison with the Bali Declaration, I would only say Bali was Bali and New Delhi is New Delhi. I mean, Bali was a year ago. The context, the situation was different. Many things have happened since then. And in fact, if you see in the geopolitical segment of the Leaders' Declaration, there are in totality 8 paragraphs, 7 of which actually focus on the Ukraine issue. But obviously, because of the ongoing conflict, the strong views about it, considerable time was spent, especially in the last few days, in regard to geopolitical issues, which really centered around the war in Ukraine. Everybody helped because everybody came together for the consensus. But I think if Sherpa would bear me out, I think the emerging markets took a particular lead on this, and many of us have a strong history of working together. Bear in mind that actually you have 4 developing countries in succession as G20 presidency: Indonesia, us, Brazil, and South Africa. So, but I would say, rather than who helped, the point to be recognized is that a common landing point was ultimately fashioned out. It is a fact. This is today a very polarizing issue. There are multiple views on this. There are a spectrum of views on this. So I think, in all fairness, it was only right to record what was the reality in the meeting rooms, and I think that is the sense that is sought to be captured. On any of them? Is that
so we'll take a few more questions.
I don't think one should overly read meanings into it. What I think is important is what is the position which that country has taken, how much that country has contributed to the deliberations and the outcomes. And I would say here that all the G20 members, and since the question was asked specifically about China, I would say China as well.